Hey, welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, we're talking about the critical role of branding in your marketing strategy. This is something I love to talk about. Again, one of my favorite topics. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. All right. Well, so today we're talking about branding, and I want to start with a little bit of an overview, an introduction, right? We all know what branding is. This is not a word that's new to any of our marketing folks out there, I'm sure, but I want to just set the stage, right? So, branding matters so much to our marketing team. And I believe that it should also mean so much to our business owners and our executives out there as well. But I have noticed that a lot of people don't really know what it all entails. So I want to just set the stage in telling you what I mean when I talk about branding. So, branding is an all encompassing term that includes your logo, your colors, what your company looks like, but it's not just that. So, branding does not just equal your logo, right? So, there's a lot more to your brand and your brand strategy than just having pretty social media graphics and a nice website that has your logo on it. So, branding is supposed to connect and make a emotional connection with your audience. It's also supposed to tell them who you are. More than just your logo's job is to identify you. Your logo's job is not to tell your company or tell your audience exactly what your company does. It doesn't tell them what product you sell, right? That's not your logo's job. Your branding's job is to do all of these things. So it's a bunch of different pieces that come together to support each other to build that reputation for your business. So it is the emotional perception and the connection that you have with your customers and your buyers. I've also noticed that with the shift in new generations coming into the buying field and social media and everything, branding has really changed. So your branding efforts are really to educate your buyer and to get your name out there and who you are and what makes you different, better out there. But we're doing it and you're using our brand in different ways. So things like social media, that's a big place where your brand really needs to be on full display for those younger buyers that are out there looking at your company to try to make a decision on whether or not they trust you, they like you, all of that, that you need to gain that influence. And that's what your brand does. Your brand can make you look like a bigger company than you are. It can make you look like a smaller company than you are. It could make you look like that you're super trustworthy. It could make you look like you're very professional. It can change the perception of what people see when they find you no matter where you are. It's also really important that your branding is it's cohesive. You're not like changing your branding all of the time and you're not changing it for any platform that you're on. Your brand should be consistent and authentic to you. So, let's talk about why branding then is essential to any business. Branding shapes, like I said, how your customers feel about you and it influences their purchasing decisions. Now, it's a difficult metric because it's not something that you put on your surveys. Hey, how did you hear about us? It's like, oh, what was your branding? Not very many people. I would say that because I am obsessive about brands, but no one else is out there saying that. So it's how it's nurturing those people through that buying decision, but it usually starts way before the sale. This is people seeing your name somewhere, recognizing your logo, maybe recognizing the way that you speak or certain posts that you make on social. Maybe it's your signage. All of these things are branding efforts that people are going to see and they're going to be able to recognize you and it's going to influence their purchasing decision down the line. Now, consumers, we know this, they buy from brands that they trust and relate to. So, building your brand is building that trust and relation to all of your target clients. But it's a long game, right? This is an investment into building that. It's very rare. I shouldn't say never. You very rarely walk into a bar and make a best friend in the first 5 minutes. That's what your branding is. Your branding is that long-term relationship. It's meeting them in the bar and then, oh, you see them at the gym and then you connect about this topic. And then pretty soon you're friends. But that initial, they're going to see you everywhere. They're going to know who you are because they've had these multiple interactions with you. That's your brand doing that to build that relationship. It's definitely a long-term investment. That's the part that's frustrating. And I think why a lot of people don't really understand why branding is so important is because it is like a long-term thing. But it builds loyalty with your customers. It builds like the desire to do a referral. You're not going to do a referral for a brand that you don't like and that you don't trust. And you start that relationship early, and that's how you get affiliates and fans of brands. It's because of the branding. It's not necessarily because they know someone that works at the company. I'm a huge fan of Lululemon. I don't know anybody that works at Lululemon. I've never met the owner of Lululemon, but I love the brand. I love how they present themselves. I love their products. So I become like a fan through enjoying their branding. Ton of people have this with Apple as well. So if you have an iPhone and an iPad and an iMac, like you are a fan of the brand, also of the products, but you have decided that you are connected to this brand for some reason. You like it for some reason. A lot of people with Apple, it's because it's very simplistic. Their branding is really clean. And then that goes into how their products look and how their interfaces look. So they have super strong brands that people buy it just for that brand. The people buy Lululemon for that logo. Same with Apple. They want that Apple on it. That adds value to them because they like the brand. It's irrelevant how good the product is when you have a really amazing brand, because I would argue there are a lot of clothing stores out there that have better quality or nicer things than Lululemon. Even though I love Lululemon clothes and I'm going to buy them forever, there are a lot of brands out there that have just as nice of actual products if you just separated out the brand. The next thing on my list of things to talk about is struggles that we have in building a brand and just branding struggles in general. So businesses struggle with branding mostly because, like I said, there's not a clear checklist or a really standard metric that we can say that this much of our sales was related to brand recognition. Now, when you get into really big companies, there are a lot of calculations and things that you can do to figure that out, surveys and whatnot. But it's difficult for smaller businesses, and a lot of you that are listening to this podcast, we don't work for these giant companies, so it's not as easy to quantify. We put a lot of effort, we're spending money, building a brand, and like, where is it going? It's not your sales at the bottom of your funnel. You've got all these metrics, and people love to see that, celebrate that. It's really easy to understand. So branding is more at the top and in the middle of your funnel, so there's not as much. So it can be really difficult to advocate for this with your leadership and to other people in your company. The other thing is branding is an ongoing process. So a lot of times I work on branding jobs for clients, create a beautiful brand guide, create all this strategy, create a logo, create colors, all of it, hand it off, and then that's where it ends. That's not how branding works. Branding is an ongoing thing. It is not a one-time project. You have to continually work at it. You have to continually tweak it. You have to always be auditing it. So it's something that it takes a lot of effort to build that. The other thing is brand perception can easily become diluted if you're not really active. So you can put in a lot of effort up front and then it usually goes away. People have very short memories. The internet's forever. People on the internet forget you really fast if you're not showing up consistently. So if you've not made changes to your branding, it's gonna go away. It's gonna lose that relevance. So refreshing your brand as necessary is really important. Now, that does not mean you need to rebrand and redo your logo every single year. You're not doing a full rebrand every single year or multiple times a year. Don't do that. That's gonna be completely on the other side. That's gonna be negative effects. but you do want to update it. You make sure that your brand is still speaking to your target client. Maybe your target client changed a little bit. Maybe you need a new tagline. Just tweaking things throughout to just make it better is really important. So consistency is also really important. While you are always need to be innovating, you also need to have consistency and differentiation from everyone else in your industry. There are some key strategies that I like to use just to keep your brand effective. So that is being consistent across all of your marketing channels. That's both in posting schedule, that is also in where you're posting, what you're doing. Are you doing videos? Are you doing podcasts? Are you doing blogs? Is your website kept up to date? Making sure that everything that you're putting out is consistent in timing and also consistent in the messaging and the style. If you are putting out everything, your brand color is only green. You've got all of these beautiful templates, you use them for 6 months, and all of a sudden you're like, "You know what? Just kidding. We're gonna start using yellow now." It's gonna break that. People are gonna, "Oh, wait, I always look for the green posts. I don't know who this is. I always look for the green sign when I'm going into a new community." You gotta make sure that any kind of changes that you make or anything like that are not gonna be so jarring that it's gonna break that recognition. Now, you also want to stand out by addressing your customers' needs better than than how your competitor is doing that. Writing down who is my client, who is my target demographic. If you don't have that as part of your marketing strategy, you definitely need that as well. And then writing down what's important to them. What are their problems? Why are they looking for a new home? Why are they moving to this area? Or what are their pain points with their current home? Like all these kind of things, that's especially obviously for home builders, but all of these things are going to help you build a brand that's going to be relevant to who you're talking to. So making sure that you're addressing your customer as a hero of this story is super important as well. And then you need to align your brand with your customer interactions. So it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're going to have your website be completely disconnected from the rest of your customer journey if they're going to have to go on the website in order to complete their final purchase, or if you've got everything happening on social media but then you've got to pull them over here to Zoom to do the final presentation. Like, it's going to be difficult to get them off of where they are and over here. So making sure that your brand aligns across all of these different platforms is going to be really helpful, but also you're upfront about what this customer journey is, and whatever you look like over here needs to look like what you're going to be on the other side. So if you're going from social media to your website, that's a very common path, right? And that's totally great. But your website needs to match what your social media looked like. You can't be just changing everything. Same thing as if you're like on the website and you're looking at this beautiful home and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go see it in person. If all your signs look different, and when they get there, like the logo's different on all of your marketing materials that you have in house, or if the colors are just different, it just doesn't look the same. It makes you question. It makes you not trust what's happening. So you really need to make sure that the consistency pulls through your entire customer journey, and that's going to include getting other departments involved, most likely. So bringing in everybody and making sure we're all aligned on our branding goals is going to be super important. Now, the next segment of what I want to talk about is creating a memorable brand experience. So that customer journey that we just talked about, it really needs to be memorable. It really needs to stand out. It really needs to align with the brand values that you have in place that were most likely or hopefully created during your branding process. But those brand values need to show through, and they need to be so apparent to the customer that they could tell you what they are, right? Like, oh, I know that this builder really values innovation, right? I know that my home is going to be innovative. It's going to be a top of the line. I know that we're going to have eco-friendly features. I know that's important to them, and that's also important to me. So that's why I'm going with this builder, right? Now, if your buyer doesn't care about any of that stuff, you need to realign your brand and what you're talking to, because you're trying to get that person to buy. So you need to connect with them. So the other thing is you also need to connect it to the interactions that they're going to have. So at every touch point, you need to be talking about, here's what's important to us. Maybe it's transparency. So when you have these meetings, be transparent with your buyer. The things that they're seeing in your branding are also they're seeing in real life and that brand is carried through. The other thing is using storytelling. I touched on that earlier, making your customer the hero in your business. So you are telling them a story about how you are going to help them, how you are going to solve their problem, how this home is going to give them exactly what they're looking for. So that is not only part of your brand, it becomes the story of your entire company. And you can train your sales team, you can train all of your agents, all of your employees to follow along in that story. This is what we're doing, and get everyone's buy-in so that when your buyer is going through this whole process, it all makes sense. It's all super comfortable. It's, oh, you're saying the exact same thing that I saw on the website. And that it builds that confidence. But the storytelling aspect is really important because people they want to see themselves in what they're doing. They want to be the main character. Make them the main character of your brand. And it takes a really good understanding of who you're talking to, who your current or your target buyer is. You really have to understand them, who they are, what they care about, what their pain points are. And once you know all of those things, you can create a story for them. But so make that part of just really front and center in your brand and see how that takes you. It's one of my favorite things to do. It does take a little bit of time. So definitely don't think that this is going to be an overnight thing. Oh, I just understand everything about this buyer and now everything's going to be different. It does take some time and tweaking to figure that out. And it may change over time. So you have to stay on it as well. But it's so impactful once you start, like, actually talking to your buyer directly on every platform that you have as well as in person. They just already have so much more information, so much more trust in you before that you actually even get to talk to them in person. And then personalize it for them. Have testimonials from people that are like them. Have your target customers make testimonials for you. Hopefully, as you're building this brand, you're going to have your target clients and past buyers and everything engaging with your posts online. People seeing that interaction create the excitement around your company and around your brand to build that loyalty. That's going to be so helpful for you. You want to have a good reputation. Another thing is a little more analog, but another thing that a lot of people do is like getting involved in local events, getting along, being active in like local committees and things like that. Come with your branded t-shirt on, come with your flyers, whatever it is, whatever's appropriate for this event. But showing up in your community is also another way to build that loyalty and show that these core values aren't just something that we've written on our website. It actually is a part of who we are and who this brand is. Emotionally, most buying decisions are emotional. We know this. So if we're not putting that emotion into our branding, we're missing the mark as well. So emotions are really going to take your brand from being a pretty picture and making it again connect, putting in your exactly what your target buyer's problem is, putting in how your product is going to make them feel after, building messaging around these things that maybe it's not a problem that they have. Maybe it's just that they want to move into this home so that they can start a family. And building a family is such an emotional life event, as with buying a home is. So make your whole story about that. You are building this beautiful home to raise your family in someday. And you all your photos match with that message. Your copy matches the things that you talk about. Like that's just it's so powerful and they're going to connect with that so easy. Oh, I just got like goosebumps about talking about new families. But anyway, so I want to instill that like this brand is so much more than like your logo and like your colors. That's really the whole point of all of that was just like bringing in all these extra aspects that you can to really create an environment almost with your brand. Now, you can also utilize partnerships. This is another thing. If you can easily partner and make sure that these other companies also align with your values and your client is also interacting with other brands, at building partnerships and things like that, whether it's online or in your community, can also be a really powerful way to build a brand because you can be adjacent or be next to a brand that's also well known and has the same goals or adjacent goals and you can grow parallel to them. So that's also a tactic that you can use to build that emotional consistency if somebody's already interested in a certain aspect of your business, then it's going to be easier to pull them over. So partnerships with other businesses can be a really important part of building a brand as well. So once you've got this beautiful brand, you've done all this work to make all of this strategy, you really have to be able to monitor it and adjust it as needed. Your brand should be like set, right? You should have a plan and a strategy that everyone's following, but it shouldn't be so rigid that when something comes along or needs to change that you can't do that. Flexibility is super important as well. When that evolution is needed, going back to this drawing board, going back to these notes that you're creating and tweaking it and saying, okay, how can we pull that into, does it align still with our core values? How can we pull this new aspect into the brand? Making small changes throughout the year will help just tweak it. Like it'll just help make it more impactful as time goes on. The other thing is it shows that you're listening. So if you find that your buyers are telling you a certain thing or the industry is changing in a certain way, it shows that you're listening, that you are also adapting. Nobody really wants to be on like a super rigid like thing that's gonna start deteriorating, right? And so that while that does take time to deteriorate, we don't want that to start happening to our brand because we don't want to do this like up and down motion of growth. Like we're trying to grow the brand really consistently and organically. So that is going to take some evolution. So staying on that, being active listeners to your buyers, to the people in your company, to your community, all of that is super important. And just checking back with, does this still align? Now, we also have seen as generations shift, sometimes what is important to your buyers now, when in 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to be now talking to their children, right? So keeping up with what is relevant today and what is impacting your buyers today. And if there is a generational shift in who your buyer is, that's going to require a little bit of shift on your side as well. So just being cognizant that does happen. Now, it's really interesting because being authentic and building this brand is something that not one person is going to be doing, right? So you really have to also train your team on who you are and what your brand is. Leveraging those like emotional stories and those like problem statements and all of that you have, training your team on that and using that as a way to help not only your sales team also understand your buyer and connect with them. But like sharing, this is what we're doing. This is who we're talking to. And that's going to just make sure that every time throughout that buyer journey that there is like some sort of handoff or they're talking with a new person or they're on a new aspect of the company, it's going to stay consistent. Like consistency is the most important thing. So you definitely need to bring people in. This is not just for our marketing teams. We cannot be the only ones that know what our brand goals are, the shifts that we're making, all of that stuff. We really have to bring in other people. And I do think that that's also going to help with when you do have to start talking about, hey, what was the impact of those brand changes? You'll have people to talk to. It's, oh, now our salespeople are saying these things because we're bringing in a different client base, or we got feedback from the executive team about how this impacted conversations they had with partners, or whatever it is. You have to lead that conversation as a marketer, but prefacing that with everyone kind of being on the same page to start with is going to make it so much easier to have those conversations and to link it back. Now, I would say just a bonus tip, write this stuff down. Write down what you tell people, write down what your goals are so that when you do get the questions later or you do need to advocate for yourself and your brand later on down the road, you can connect that back and you have a record of it. That's really important and something that I think a lot of marketers forget. So just remember, branding is more than your logo or a slogan. It's really the heartbeat of how your customers see and feel and trust your business. And we know that the market out there is really noisy. We want our customers to remember us, to connect with us, and to build that memory and recognition. The brands that I find have the biggest wins are those that feel genuine and that feel aligned with their values and their audience and are continually adapting. So, that is all of our goals. I would love to hear what your feedback is. I would love to hear any additional things. What do you think I forgot? What do you think I should add? Let me know. I'm always open for feedback and I love to have a good conversation about branding. It's literally one of the things that I think about probably the most. Yeah, come back for our next podcast episode. I'm super excited that you were here for this one. and I will see you next time. Bye.